the people are what's different.
Okay.
You could really, I mean, you could go as far as saying that the content is different, but the draw is different as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Like for me, a con and tattooing at one of those isn't as lucrative for me as doing a normal tattoo convention.
That makes sense.
Where for Kelsey, it's a different ball game.
Sure.
She does well at cons.
Yeah.
And enjoys those more than a tattoo convention. But then again,
Right.
I meant to tell you that, I mean, as your career progresses, you may start finding
It
that
might shift.
it will shift over, and you'll be like, you know what, these cons are cool, but
Right.
this is where it, I'm getting, I've got my feet planted.
Right.
Welcome back to more Artistry Unearthed. We are Cryptic Tattoo and Social Gallery here in Springfield, Missouri. I am Nate,
I'm David.
I'm Kelsey.
and it's been a minute since we've done this. The three of us. It's been a minute since we posted episodes. We've been really busy. There's actually a lot going on. The last month has been pretty cool, pretty crazy. We've been growing quite a bit. We have a couple new, well, one of which was an apprentice, which you've been introduced to before, but we brought in a new artist that we're fielding, and she's doing really well. We did a couple of conventions, two completely different kinds of conventions, one of which was actually a tattoo convention, the Carnival of Ink, which was a previous episode we did, was an interview with the power couple that run Carnival of Ink, Joe and Anna. We did end up doing that convention. We have some reviews and some topics that we want to talk about with it. But we also had a quick follow-up with almost a pop culture, like independent artist and creator convention called Tremendicon, which is actually more industry creative focused on professionals in different industries like comics and film and TV. And to be the only tattoo artist at that convention was very interesting. I think it was pretty endearing. We did it once before when we first started, but this year we kind of came in swinging. And so we wanted to, for this episode, kind of talk about our experiences in both conventions, and then really kind of compare the two, the differences and the similarities between them. So I figured that would be a pretty good topic, kind of get some insight and kind of catch up on all the events of what's going on with Cryptic and with the podcast. Because the podcast itself has actually started getting some attention online. We have a TikTok. For all of you who don't know, we have a TikTok, we have an Instagram. Actually, I think the Instagram is the shop, the Cryptic, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But the Artistry Unearthed.
Don't forget Spotify.
And Spotify, right? So I mean,
YouTube.
you're probably watching or listening to this on YouTube or Spotify.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
But we have clips of these episodes in like 1 minute beats on TikTok, like everybody else, because that's the world now. And one of the TikToks that we wanted to kind of bring up and talk about just real quickly was an interesting one featuring Mandy explaining in our episode of what body parts or types of designs we don't want to do, like where we draw the line. We had a short segment about requests that happen often of how or if we would tattoo private parts, specifically the peen. So we posted that, giving Mandy's insight as to what she heard and the advice that she was given from other artists about how to properly tattoo a penis. And we had some responses from other artists and other artists that, like friends of artists that have like, well, this is what they did. And some of them are just, at least two of them are pretty awesome. And because I don't think there's really a good way to do it at all. So for us to get some insight on how other people who have experienced this process, we actually have the TikTok pulled up. David, you want to You want to read us? Put the name of the person who posted and then what they said.
Okay, so Broke Boy 6.7 had this to say: I used to hang out with an old school tattoo artist. You actually get hard and then put a rubber band at the base to keep it hard while you tattoo it.
So
That you know,
you tourniquet.
I don't think nobody's putting a rubber band
So
Yeah.
my
around that.
concern there is we had, I don't know if you remember, we had two gentlemen that we were tattooing at the same time, not on the dick, mind you, just run of the mill tattoos, and one of them had been an EMT and was talking about an experience in which an individual had put, I believe, a ring, like a wedding ring, not a ring that was made for this purpose.
Oi.
And then gotten hard, and then the circulation, it had gotten caught like that. And so they cut the ring off, but because of the damage from him losing circulation for so long, they ended up having to amputate all of it. And so
Oh.
Whoa,
I
that's
would
a
just,
quick way to.
I'm not a medical professional.
Rubber bands are
But
easier to get.
Your body has blood flow for a reason. That is easier to get off, and it wouldn't be on for super long. But like, just be real careful what you choose to do with things that are important to you, and you would like to remain attached to your body in good working
I guess you
condition.
should be more careful about how many times you wrap the rubber band.
Let's not get too crazy.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a
Should we
full
go
on.
3, maybe 4? I think I can go it 4 times. You know,
I don't know. Is it one of those wide rubber bands like comes on the broccoli? Those real
Right.
sturdy ones? Are we talking like a little skinny, like regular office supplies one? I don't know.
Yeah,
the
that.
little thin ones. You know,
Yeah, well, like a braces
to
rubber
where
band.
you
Those
know,
are
yeah,
hardcore.
like when you put it in the hair, that you can wrap that thing like 12 times.
I think this has a lot of potential to go
Right.
wrong.
And what if it starts
have
turning colors?
concerns.
It's already gone left.
Our
It's
stencil,
gonna have to start turning colors.
our
You're
stencil is
literally-
purple. It's hard for us to understand what's what. That would be it. Good news is there's not a whole lot you can tattoo on that spot. That it's not like you would have to worry about it looking amazing. And it would probably you only have a very short window of time anyway, so you don't have to worry about it looking great. And it can't be that much. But yeah, I mean, a dick tourniquet. That's something else. Do you include the balls in that? I don't know.
I don't think you do.
Yeah. So hey, if
I
you
don't
have a
think you do.
follow up, any more details, throw it in the comments.
Yeah, if
But
you've
there's-
got experience, please let us know. We're learning here.
I mean,
too.
apparently, male genitals are a cat. You can skin them
actually,
many ways.
I want to see somebody comment on it that's actually done it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, all this is
All of these other ones are
these are
like,
interesting.
Just
for
like
sure.
I
there's
heard a
comments,
guy
right?
say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the other comment? This one's pretty good.
Oh yeah, my friend. This was from Prime Entertainment. My friend has SpongeBob on his penis, and he had to take a Viagra and stay hard.
That seems to be
SpongeBob.
a SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
That is a place you can put that.
Like
I don't know if it's the best place.
I figured a Squidward would be probably
that's
more.
what I was just about to say. I think Squidward would. I think
a little
would
more
have been a better
appropriate,
choice.
but I digress.
I mean, a plankton, I guess, wouldn't be too bad.
So a Viagra, I mean, that's cool. What if you did the Viagra tourniquet combo? Would that be too much?
I think you need to
I
consult a
think
medical
you-
professional.
yeah, have you ever seen a hot dog in a microwave?
Oh my! All right, so yeah, that's
There
that.
you go. Yeah, I don't think that would
because-
turn
That's
out
the
well.
quickest bit that we've ever had.
Viagra is affecting your blood pressure. That's kind of the whole point of it and how it works.
Right.
Right.
And it was my understanding that it was developed as a blood pressure medication. And they're like, hey, look at this side effect. This looks marketable. So, yeah, definitely anything that's affecting your blood pressure, you need to make sure that that checks out with the other medications you're using in your doctor, because
Yeah.
we don't want you to break your stuff on. Maybe just put that SpongeBob somewhere else, guys.
Mm.
It's an option.
Yeah.
So among all the things that we've had updates, we've been getting more engagement online, which has been awesome. You can follow us on Facebook, Cryptic Tattoo on Facebook and Instagram, and then the Artistry Unearthed is on TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. So we want to make a habit of like cool, decent, engaging conversations and insights. We want to share them, so throw them in there. Might as well, if you're seeing it, you might as well throw us a like or a follow.
Mhm.
Follow, because there's all kinds of content from all different reaches of this creative space that we like to throw in there. It's been a fun ride. We just hit a year with Cryptic Tattoo,
Yes, we did.
and we've already been growing a bit inside, in-house, and out. We've even, since the last time we did a podcast, I completely overhauled our audio setup. So please be patient with us. There's a lot of extra sounds that come from these microphones. I think overall it's a huge improvement, but we're having to train to use microphones, especially this close. So if people look awkward, there's good reason. They're not used to having a microphone directly in their mouth, but we'll figure it out. Thanks for your patience. But another major thing that's happened, we did Carnival of Ink.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 3-day event. It was the first time that all of us, it was really the 4 of us plus Haley, our apprentice, that was set up. And Haley was there more like extra hands, just helping us out.
Mm-hmm.
But we had 4 stations. We had all of our banners. We had TVs and monitors. We had the podcast showing. I think we at the very least wanted to show up and make a presence, and I think we did that. I think we did a pretty good job of that. Now, I've done a lot of conventions of other types, like the pop culture and the comic and TV and cinema kind of realm. So there's a lot of similarities that I see between those and the tattoo conventions, and there's a lot of differences, and I think they're fascinating. David, do you have a working number of how many tattoo conventions you've done?
No. I don't have
No. Have you traveled pretty far for different ones? Have you?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question would be is every convention set up kind of run differently, or are they really similar, and how so?
Well, everybody, I mean, not so. I mean, to me, if you want what my opinion on basing it against, a normal con, it's definitely, for me, it's night and day.
Is it?
It literally is the flow, the people are what's different.
Okay.
You could really, I mean, you could go as far as saying that the content is different, but the draw is different as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Like for me, a con and tattooing at one of those isn't as lucrative for me as doing a normal tattoo convention.
That makes sense.
Where for Kelsey, it's a different ball game. She does well at cons,
Yeah,
and enjoys those more than a tattoo convention. But then again,
Right.
I meant to tell you that, I mean, as your career progresses, you may start finding
It
that
might shift.
it will shift over, and you'll be like, you know what, these cons are cool,
Right.
but this is where I'm getting. I've got my feet planted.
Right.
So
I'd like to explain what a tattoo convention looks like real quick for people
Sure.
that haven't been to
Yeah.
one, because
Right.
it's a very specific niche market, a tattoo convention. Whereas another, like a pop culture convention, you've got your authors there, you've got your cosplayers there, you've got your gamer tabletop nerds, you've got your superhero people there. Like there's more of a mix. I did the thing and hit the mic. But so a tattoo convention, usually it's in a large convention center. A lot of them that I've seen are 3 days. There might be some that aren't, that are 2 days, 4 days, whatever. But generally, if you're taking the time to get out there and tattoo, it's such a financial commitment that it needs to be over some time. You have a number of tattoo artists, sometimes hundreds, that are all tattooing at the same time in sectioned off booths. You also have vendors that are there. Either there are always some that are selling like tattoo equipment, but you get a lot of vendors that are selling just fun stuff like shirts. This last time there was people selling preserved bugs, animal skeletons, things like that. Just oddities and interesting things.
rubber
Then it's
band bracelets.
Rubber band bracelets. There you go. That's what our children were hawking at the convention.
Yeah.
So you get a variety of people there, and then it's open to the public. The ones I've been to are open to all ages to visit. There might be some that are 18 and up. I don't know. But people come, they pay for their ticket to come for the day or for the weekend. They walk around, they can watch the artist tattooing and see what people are doing. They can get information on an artist and book for a future date for a piece that they want to book a ways out. Maybe if they're shopping for an artist, it's a good option. People get actually tattooed at the convention, and some of those are scheduled pieces that maybe are taking place over a whole day or even the whole weekend. And then there are people that come in not knowing what they want. They shop around, they find a design they like, and the person tattoos them right then and there. There are also people that come that aren't getting tattooed, that just want to shop around and see what's up. And then there is typically some sort of award ceremony that happens. And there are tattoo pieces that were either finished and brought finished to the show or completed at the show. They compete in different categories based on the size of the tattoo, the style of the tattoo, that sort of thing. And then those artists are competing for awards, with Best in Show typically being the most coveted, that they can use to try to either gain sponsors or to widen their reach on social media, or to advertise and just say, hey, I'm an award-winning artist. Look at me. I'm worth my salt. Come check out what I'm doing, that sort of thing. So that is really different than a lot of other conventions I've been to, where it's just, look at all these people doing their own thing at their own table, and it might not necessarily be related to what's happening at the table next to it. It's really the competition is a key part of what's happening at a tattoo convention.
Right.
You're there to see the best of the best duking it out, and putting their best work forward, and displaying what they've been working hard on for the last year since they've seen each other.
Yeah. Tattoo conventions to me seems like if you had like a pop culture convention, where at a pop culture convention, typically you have a lot of independent artists that do their own material. They make their own stories, and they have their own published books, self-published or otherwise. And yeah, they'll take commissions for people to come out with like, hey, I love your art. Will you draw me this? And then you draw it for them. They go off and get food or whatever, and then they come back and they, it's almost like but you also have the vendor section, and the vendor room section of a lot of these conventions are typically far bigger than the artist alley, is what they call it, And it seems like with tattoo conventions, it's almost like take your pop culture like convention, but make the entire convention artist alley, where everybody that's there, every booth you set up is full of actual artists looking to work. They're wanting commissions. They're on the spot. They might have prints of some of their art. They might have, art books of stuff that they do. They may have merch, but really their focus is to show up and make art for people who attend the convention.
Right.
And that's a major difference. It's basically like what I think every artist alley should be in like a lot of the pop culture, like, comic conventions. But the crowd is wildly different too, because a lot of the people that show up to these, to a tattoo convention, they go looking for tattoos. Like they have a set aside a budget where like, I want, and some of them know what they want ahead of time. Some of them, like you mentioned, may have scheduled with a specific artist. They know is going to be there.
Yeah, they're collectors. And they might have been waiting for that person to come through, because you have people traveling nationally and internationally.
Yep.
So they might have had their eye on this artist that's their person, and they're in Berlin, and they're like, oh my gosh, this person's coming to, the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest. This is going to be so much more practical and affordable for me, as opposed to flying across the planet. Let's get this done here.
Right.
But yeah, I think at the Carnival of Ink in Springfield, would you say it was like a 1-to-10 ratio maybe of artists versus people just selling things and not creating art at their booth?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Probably. Yeah. So it's definitely a bit of an inverse from what you see to pop culture in that way.
Yeah, because the pop culture is just the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. They're there because they want. A lot of it is cosplay. A lot of people that go to these conventions, they just want to dress up as their favorite characters from their favorite shows and walk around and just and just mingle and talk and hang out with their friends.
Right.
They may have specific artists that they really like that they want to get prints from, but more often than not, they usually buy on impulse. Most people that come to their, they may have artists that are like, oh, hey, I have a new book that, not to say that people don't like follow artists, but like, if they know that a certain celebrity is going to be there, that's going to be the draw. The biggest draw is really like if a celebrity from their favorite TV show is going to be there.
Right.
That's what they're going to dedicate their day standing in line for. That's what they're going to save all their money for, to get signatures and stuff on all their stuff. Like that's really, everything else is like, as they're walking by, it catches their attention. Oh, I want that. And they just buy it right there on the spot, which is interesting for us because as tattoo artists, it's like, yeah, it's a commission. It's really no different than a commission art. Like, hey, we have these things available. But it's more, is it novelty? Is that the word for it? Because
it's more niche, I think, for sure. But it is a little different because at a typical like pop culture convention, you can spend 5 minutes at every table and, drop $10 here, drop $100 there and be like, ooh, I like this thing. I like this thing. But at a tattoo convention, you have to slow down a little bit because you can't just pick up a tattoo in 5 minutes, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
So there is a novelty
It's a
to
little
it, or at
different.
least there is a to the fact like I can do that here, and that's
Mm-hmm.
and that's just right now because people aren't used to seeing a tattoo studio like a tattoo booth, especially tattoo artists that have flash or who can draw or have a reputation for drawing all the stuff that they're huge fans of. Like there's a lot of people that wanted Pokemon, there's a lot of and that's all stuff that's like really interesting. I feel like we're really dipping our toe into another market that I've been a part of these conventions for a long time. My other business with Clever Kaiju, we tour around and we do these and we see all different kinds, but they're all universally similar
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that most people are there to show off their cosplay and to hang out with their friends and maybe buy cute prints as they come across them. Not everybody, but art collecting for that is different. And there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I could get that print or I could spend more money and have it on me permanently for the rest of my life. And I think it's cool and it was uplifting to see that. However, I feel like if it does take off, it will become less and less popular. I'm on the fence about how I feel about like if people saw tattoo artists like set up at their favorite conventions,
Mm-hmm.
like would that be more fascinating in the beginning, and then it would just like year after year, like
Like it would lose the shininess?
would
I
it
don't
lose
think
the
so.
shininess? Would it integrate well?
No,
Would
because I
it-
think the tattoo market it's shown that it's growing in every way exponentially,
yeah,
massively. And so it is a really different crowd. So you get a lot of people at a tattoo convention who have been in the tattoo community for years. They've spent a lot of time and money and put literal blood, sweat, and tears into the pieces on their body. And they want to display it in a room full of people who can actually appreciate it for what it is
mm-hmm.
and understand like, oh, that piece is high quality. It's well done by a good artist. And so there's a lot of people that are showing off their ink at a tattoo convention and they're there to find the next artist for something big, unless they just, want a little souvenir tattoo, a tiny banger. But at the pop culture con, a lot of people are more looking for something small. I think that they can just, get a little quick fandom piece.
Right,
People weren't coming up and saying, hey, can you do this giant portrait of so-and-so? It's like,
right.
oh, I just want some little, cheapy small thing. And we get a lot of first timers. And so
Yeah.
I really enjoy that aspect of it. Getting to bring somebody through the process of their first tattoo and they might be nervous. It's really different than tattooing someone who's getting their 10th tattoo.
Yeah,
And then sometimes they'll, they've been thinking about it for a long time, but they're intimidated by the idea of going into a shop. So you're kind of meeting them on their turf where they're
Yeah.
comfortable
that's a good point.
and saying like, I'm coming into your world. You feel like you belong here. Hey, I'm also adjacent to this. I like nerd stuff too.
Right.
Look at this
You're-
thing I can do. You've always wanted a tattoo, but you're intimidated of going into this, maybe like the biker shop or the place where the quote cool kids or the rebels or the metalheads hang out. And
Is that the stereotype that we always talk about?
Well, and that's
Because
kind of
it's
part of what we're
stereotypical.
curving is that like, yeah, we're tattoo
Why
artists,
our
but we're
studio,
also
our studio does not look like your atypical tattoo studio.
right.
It's not
But that's what's
typical, yeah.
important is that like, look, we're also nerds too. We watch the same thing. We're fans
Right.
of the same thing you are. We like the difference is we like drawing the
Mhm.
stuff that you like to see on TV just as much as that comic artist over there. We just do it in we offer a different medium that you may not have considered before.
right.
And that overall, I felt like the tattoo convention scene has a pretty like, at least with Carnival of Ink, because they've been doing it for so long. They have a plan. They have their market. They have their metric. They have their plan, and it works. A lot of the pop culture things, like they have their things that they cater to. They have their market they cater to. And for most part, like the most successful pop culture rely heavily on their guests, like the draw. And I would like to think that setting up a tattoo group would bring a very, like, would draw maybe
Mhm.
not like huge crowds, but at least a wider variety of people in crowds. But they're universally they're younger in
Mhm.
these a lot more younger people than in tattoo
Mhm.
conventions, and that
Yep.
and that's something to be spoken for. So it's one of those things where the outreach of being able to be like, hey, look, no, we're nerds too. We're not
Mhm.
scuzzy drug addicts.
Oh, I
and-
mean, it's all still in the realm of art.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
No matter which way you look at, whether you're a writer, whether you're an illustrator, whether you're, I mean, it's all art in the end. I think just intertwining the two and introducing tattooing to the pop culture world
Hmm.
in that fashion, I think
Mm-hmm.
is a new thing that
So
people will eventually I think they'll grab onto it, and it's, I mean, if it's a consistent thing.
yeah.
I mean, and I think that those type of cons have to do their part in the promoting and pushing and helping introduce that to the art world.
Yeah.
That way
Right.
people understand that, yeah, this is art, just no different than, Colin over there writing a book. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. We just do it permanently.
Right.
Yeah.
you
So,
know.
well, one of the things that is different that does present a challenge when you're going outside of that insulated tattoo convention environment is obviously you're dealing with health and safety concerns that are going to be
Mhm.
different than if you were selling novels,
Yes.
And so the tattoo convention people, they have got to be on it. And if they've been
Mhm.
doing it for a while, they're probably doing a good job of it, or they would have
Mhm.
been shut down a long time ago.
Right.
And making sure, there's all these rules you wouldn't think about, like, oh, you can't tattoo on carpet. That's a reasonable rule. But you don't think about, oh, well, does the convention center have carpet? What do we need to do? We either
Right.
need to get a convention center that doesn't have carpet or come up with some kind of temporary flooring option that can be disinfected,
Right.
that goes over the carpet, like tarps or what have you, or lay down vinyl. And so there's an inspection process that has to take place. If you're not tattooing in your home state, there's a temporary licensure process that has to take place.
Hmm.
There is a lot of things that can happen. Like if you're a convention runner and you're thinking about inviting someone from the tattoo world in,
Makes me, yeah.
you got to pick real
It
carefully.
makes me wonder
'cause-
too if that's something that they shy away from, just be of
Mhm.
the mere fact of how much work goes
Right.
into bringing in that type of art.
And not everybody is going to bring the same level of
Mm-mm.
professionalism and
Right.
come in sober and clean and ready to do a good job and represent your brand well of your convention. And so it's something that has to be gone into cautiously, and it has to be a partnership between businesses that really trust each other to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and make sure everything's taken care of the way it needs to be, so everyone is safe and bases are covered
Right.
and consent forms are filled out properly and all that sort of thing.
In shortly after we started Cryptic, we were invited to Tremendicon. It was
Mhm.
kind of a knee jerk, like, hey, what do you think? Like, all right, let's do it.
Mhm.
And it was something that, we had to, in Missouri, we had to pay $100 for a temporary license for that weekend. The convention center had carpeting, so we had to make sure that there was a complete floor covering
Mhm.
that we had to come up with ourselves. The convention center was actually very helpful with that. They have like these big laminate flooring things that they can lay down. Well, it's not laminate flooring; it's like big vinyl sheet.
Yeah.
But they,
Mhm.
for that reason, they were able to help us out. But this year, when the showrunner reached out, like, hey, I want to offer you guys a spot again, and like, awesome, that's cool. There was apparently from the year before, there were conversations with another tattoo studio, like, hey, I noticed you had tattooers there. How does that work? And
Mhm.
he was kind of like, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. So he
Mhm.
directed him to us, and we got a phone call and a message, and it was one of those things where it's like, at least this artist had like the foresight to like realize, like, look, and I think they're from another state, and he wanted he needed to know, and he looked it all up online, I guess, but. And I had to get with the showrunner, and I told him, like, that's cool, I understand, but I think we need to really clarify what exactly you could be liable for, or what sort of things we have to do to make sure to protect ourselves and to you. And that's
Right.
it. So I took pictures of all of our licenses, all of our bloodborne pathogens, and our CPR certifications,
Which
hard
are
words.
required by the state of Missouri,
Right.
and that is different in every state.
We provided him the temporary license and proof
Mhm.
of light, and then we also he stood by while we had to bring a state inspector in to look at the place and make sure that the space and all of our gear was up to date. And a lot of these things, a lot of these comic convention runners don't understand that's and how would they? They haven't done that before.
Right.
Mhm.
But it's important to know that if something happens, at their convention where something doesn't go right, and they
Mhm.
and that attendant gets mad about some like conduct or the work that, you know, the tattoo artist does at their spot. Like, yeah, it's on the tattoo artist and they signed a waiver. However, that's going to look horrible on you and your convention.
Right.
If, especially if, you know, there's legal questions and you don't have answers for, and you don't have the paperwork to provide them. So I made sure that the showrunner had all the paperwork, everything that was needed and everything legal, neatly bundled and sent to him, so that if there was anything that ever came up, or if anybody else had any questions, he would have that information to show. And that's important. You know, it's like we want to entertain the idea of different, because Tremendicon was the convention that we were talking about, the pop culture, but it's focused on professional like industry personnel, like creative people, like people who are actually working in comics and film and Hollywood special effects and illustration, animation, game design, all this stuff. And the whole focus of it was to introduce different art industries to the general public that they may not have considered before, to inspire artists that be like, oh, wait, there are jobs that can be done, whether I do it myself or I find a team. And we were very proud to represent the tattooing industry, which was an honor, but at the same time, like, oh yeah, this hasn't really been explained before. There's a lot more to it than just like, hey, draw on people, make lots of money. It was far more than that. We did a panel at that convention, which it was small, but it was fun. It kind of gave an idea of like perspective on the industry, mostly like the stigma of the industry and how we're trying to curve it here at Cryptic. And we're not alone. There's others out there that are trying to curve it around. But that was a major difference between, you know, Tremendicon and, you know, typical like, or, you know, any tattoo convention, in the sense that, you know, when at a tattoo convention, artists show up, they set up, and they work. Whether they bring people in or they like, you know, I don't know, like I joke like they're carnies at the table, like, which I hate. I'm like, hey, you want a tattoo? Come over here, give me your money, give me that face, I'll draw on it, you know.
Right.
But there's the whole like aspect of the education, and maybe we're just now starting to get into, and actually this podcast is part of that scene. I think is where we're trying to like show some insight and behind the scenes, you know, peel back the curtain a little bit and kind of show some insight on like what it takes to do what we do and how you can, you know, be involved in what we do. But like there was no conventions at a tattoo or there was no panels at a tattoo convention that I know of. There's not really anybody sitting down and actually teaching. This
There
is what
are
I do.
conventions that do have
And
that,
I'm sure
and
that
they have
there's-
workshops.
that they have
Demonstrations.
workshops and seminars, and a lot of those are just, they're not really so much put on by, I guess, the convention
Sure,
themselves as
that
they are.
you're right. They're
as they are the
independently
artists, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's great, and that's cool. I think that's one major difference. I thought is that, you know, that's a very valuable business tool for any convention, to have a professional take an hour of their time. And I mean, you know, you got to pay for that time somehow, you know, which is fair. You know, like, hey, do one panel each day of our convention. We'll give you your space. We'll give you your table.
Yep.
And they come in, and I mean, people get to sit down with a professional of any field, and they get to talk about what they know, and give insight as to like, hey, you too can do this. And that's an incredibly valuable thing that has been kind of the benchmark, I think, for you know, pop culture conventions for decades. But in tattoo conventions, I think it's been so close to the chest. I wouldn't say gatekeepy, but it is. There's a lot of professionals that don't want to talk about their secrets. They don't want to talk about their styles, you know. And I mean, and rightfully so. There's decades of practice, and you know,
Which I get, but you know, that's always been something that I've never understood. Is that we're all in this together. We're all in this for the same reason, and
there seems
to
to
not
be
help another artist better themselves so
Right.
they can be a better, you know, better artist. I just have never understood that concept.
It's becoming much more popular on
It
social
is.
media to say like, hey, here's how I do this. Let me share this. Let me push this industry forward by not keeping this close to the chest. Let's all expand on what each other knows and create something new. But I think maybe part of that, and I've not been around long enough to speak as an authority on it, but I think part of the gatekeepy vibe might be that a lot of tattooers were pushed to the margins for so long. and even tattooing in states where it wasn't legal until recently.
Right.
And so they couldn't just be like out in the middle of everything, singing from the rooftops, this is what I do and how I do it, because they would have been immediately met with rejection. And
Yeah.
so they kind of started putting that more inward. Fine, if you don't want it what I'm doing, I'll do it over here in the quiet. And
Right.
and then it became a fairly isolated, this is a thing that the rebels do by themselves over here.
Right. Yeah.
But
With the tattoo convention, it was you had people that were pre-scheduled to come in. You didn't field any walk-ups. You had people kind of planned out from ahead of time, right?
I generally do. I mean, I guess for me, it makes it a little bit easier because if you're looking, I mean, if you're gonna do a small piece
Mhm.
and you're like entering smaller categories, that tends to work okay.
Sure. Because you were focused on the convent, like the best of day and then the best of show competition.
Yeah, when I do things like that, so it makes it, I'm better prepared
Sure.
that way when it comes, convention time and time to tattoo. Not to say that there aren't people that sit there and will draw stuff up, and then you've got tattooing time. So it just depends on what you're after and what you're looking to do. I mean, if I'm doing bigger pieces, I will always pre-book.
Yeah.
I try to pre-book. That way I know that gives me draw time. That gives me time to understand, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to approach my tattoo and get it done, in a timely manner. Aside of that, I mean, there are ones that, like I said, will sit there, they'll draw it up, they'll draw it straight on the body, they'll do
Right.
whatever and tattoo it and have it done.
So your efforts are more like you have a goal in mind, and you utilize your time outside of it to make the best of every minute that you have while you're there to enter
for me.
competition.
I mean, and that may not be for every
But you have a
artist. For
small
me,
window of time in that convention to do
Right.
anything, and if you spend most of your time drawing, obviously that's. In fact, I had two of my clients. They would have come to the studio because they live here locally. The two of them that I did at the convention, one of them, she wanted a dragon hand tattoo, and she's like, you know what? If you're just going to be at Tremendicon, she works at Tremendicon. She's part of staff. She's like, why don't we just do it there? I'm like, that's cool. It gives me like another month, but okay. So it's like there's a certain thing about, I get to do it in public, like at a convention I'm already going to be at. And so that was, and then the other one hit me up.
Your average tattoo time at a convention is about 6 hours per day.
Yeah.
You can manage up to 25 hours worth of tattooing in a convention.
Sure.
Whether you spend 3 days on one piece or whether you spend 6 hours each day tattooing. I mean, so you can break that down. I mean, or let me rephrase it, not 6, more like 8. So you can
Okay.
work it in that fashion. I mean, so it just depends. I mean, some people, I hate to say it, but some people come to these conventions and they don't do really anything.
You're right.
I've had my fair share of those,
Well, and that's the
working
same with the
shows
other
and
convention,
not
too.
really doing much of anything.
And that's no different than the other one too. There's people that go in and they put up their banner and they put books on their table and they sit there and twiddle their thumbs and they think that just simply making something, their work would speak for them.
Right.
And it's like, it's a lot bigger than that. There's a lot more. It's a lot more complicated than that. But you go into the convention with like people, like you have a strategy in mind because you want to compete in the competitions at the end of the day and the end of the show, and that makes total sense. You've only got a certain small window of time to do an intense amount of work on somebody over the course of 3 days.
It's stressful. It's tense because not only are you doing that, but you're trying to promote your brand. You're trying to do all of these things in the midst of, laying down 6 hours, 7 hours worth of tattooing, and trying to compete and trying to keep your head on straight. And, your head's always on a swivel because you've got people walking by, talking to you, stopping you for a brief moment. Oh, hey, I want to buy some merchandise, or
Right.
are how far are you booked out? That sort of thing.
Sometimes your clients go in like, oh yeah, that's 20, that's 40. Sorry.
Yeah,
didn't mean to move. That's-
you get clients that are selling it for you while you're working.
Yeah.
So
And the other side of that fence, though, is along the lines of what you and
Yeah.
Mandy did, where it's like you didn't have anybody planned out. I think Mandy
Right.
might have had one planned out ahead of time. But your intention was to show up with pre-made flash and artwork and field clients, just a general outreach.
My goal was more networking. So I'm not to the point in my tattoo career yet that I'm trying to enter the competition. So mine is really different than David's. And someday I hope to be there. I'm just not there yet. So for me, my thought process is that, you know, I'm paying extra money and taking the extra hassle to load up all my stuff, pack it, go to this other place, unpack it, be somewhere that, you know, there's a little bit less wiggle room. You don't have all the comforts of home. You might have left something behind. Everything's in a different place. It's really loud. It's crowded, you know, especially if you're an introvert. It's a busy, challenging, distracting environment. If you're an introvert with ADHD, it makes it a little tricky. So I'm thinking, you know, if I've got one of my regulars and my regulars wants to do a session with me, I could just do that at the shop with this spot that I already have. Why would I pay extra to go somewhere else that takes extra effort to tattoo this person who's going to give me this money anyway? So when I'm at the convention, my goal is less to, you know, I want to put out my best show-stopping piece on my regular person, since I'm not planning on entering the competitions anyway. My goal is more to meet as many people and network as much as I can, especially with locals who might become a long-term client, and to knock out some little small pieces while I'm there to break even on my booth. So, and thus far I've had good luck with that. I've been successful. My first year in the convention, I didn't get any tattoos on the first day, but I did really well the next two. Every other convention I've done since then, I've been busy all 3 days. But honestly, that first convention, I probably shouldn't have been tattooing at it because I'd just gotten my license like a few weeks before that. And I had a
just
quickie
jump in
apprenticeship.
head first. And
Well, how many of the other artists in the place actually had a license?
I'd literally been
technically?
working on skin since, gosh, it had been
and let me
less than 3
rephrase
months.
that's not meaning the convention
What?
with what he just said.
Oh, right. No, yeah. You're
Yeah,
right.
I just want to reiterate that's not the convention. So.
No.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think I should have been tattooing at a convention that first time, but I definitely should have gone. So, like, if somebody is interested in pursuing tattooing as a career,
It's a
tattoo
great
convention would be
experience.
great.
They're fun. I mean, they're
Yeah.
absolutely fun.
Walk around, meet people, see what they're doing, and at this point, like, since tattooing has grown so much, and you can see on social media that the vibe of shops is all over the place. You can kind of get an idea for, like, oh, these are people that I'm comfortable around. I want to get to know these people better. I want to get work done by them. And maybe these people, like, you know, I respect their art, but they're not my vibe. That's not my jam. So it's a really good opportunity to meet a bunch of people really quickly and get an idea of what you're looking for to have on your body, or maybe what you'd be interested in doing as a career option.
Well, and I both times that we've done public events, like I went in with a book of stuff that I'd like to do, but being in Clever Kaiju doing the convention, I'm usually the guy that wears the hat that has all the gear. I'm the Tony Stark of both teams. I'm the guy with the gear. I'm the one with the outreach and the voice. That's been kind of the job that's been assigned to me in most of my circles. And so I wear that hat hard, and I realize, oh yeah, I did make them drag all my tattoo stuff here, and I'm not really using it. But then it's also endearing to see that, like, between the two of us, you are far more approachable. And I don't know if it's, like, I'd like to think I'm a sweetheart. I'm a good guy. But, like, there's just something about your art style and what you have a stronger finger on the pulse of, like, what people are kind of looking for in general. And there's almost a strategy to it. There's also something that's just naturally approachable.
Excuse me.
I don't think it's that I'm necessarily more or less approachable than you. I do think it helps that, like, I think that you were working on some, like, interviews and stuff, and so you weren't always at the table.
You're right.
So that's part of it.
Me.
Is like they can't talk to you if you're not there. But like, so I am used to working conventions. When I was working in universities, I was doing conventions too. I was doing conventions internationally and working at a table and being like, hey, come to our school, participate in our program. Here's a brochure. Let me tell you about the thing. So I'm really used to doing, like, the short 5-second sales pitch of here's what I have. And I'm also really accustomed to just being friendly with somebody and finding something we have in common quickly, so you can have that human connection with the person and be like,
and it makes a world of difference.
You're interested in this thing? I'm also interested in this thing. And I kind of get my same basic things I start a conversation with, like, hey, are you local? Are you from around here? You know, and then that gets a conversation started. I get to know that person, and they're like, hey, I can interact with you. Maybe I could sit in your chair for a while. So.
And that's going to be a much different dynamic than when we do, like, you know, conventions in other cities, because at least with tattooing, it's like if when somebody in a local scene comes up and you're like, oh, you're actually here in Springfield. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, my idea just got much bigger.
Right.
Do you mind we take the extra time to talk about it at your shop?
Yeah.
And go even. It's like, absolutely. And it's like, maybe that's foolish of me. Maybe I should have been the guy, that's like, no, give me, what do you got? What do you got? $300? Yeah, we'll make this happen and knock it out. But it's like, if you're in my
That's
own
not
town,
my vibe.
I'd rather you come in, like, I'd rather you think about it for another week and add everything you want and just see me in a week.
Right.
Or, and that worked out great from both conventions. That's
Right.
even Mandy, she actually had a really, like, she started on a really big, like, really pretty neo-trad piece that from a client that just walked up and was asking questions at Tremendicon, and that's incredibly valuable. I mean, it's been weeks since we seen her last, but I'm like, oh, I remember you. Welcome back. You know, like, and it makes and then she brought a friend, and then they have other friends that they're talking to, and it's just like.
And they'll bring their significant other, and they'll bring their
Right.
sibling, and then they bring their parent who's been wanting a tattoo for 40 years, but it wasn't okay back then,
Right.
and now it is. And
Which is more valuable to me
yeah,
than, like, no, just give me whatever's in your pocket, and you
No.
know, and maybe that's not business savvy. Maybe there's a lot of money I'm leaving on the table, but there's more
I don't think
valuable.
so.
There's more value in the long term for me.
I think the positive client experience is one of the best things we have to offer, and I don't think we should ignore that. I think
Yeah.
that I don't think we should leave that behind in trying to make $200 real fast. Like, that's important. So, like, I've never had to convince someone to get a tattoo.
Right.
Not once. Like, I am just making those connections with other human beings.
They
and
want
saying,
to. Yeah.
hey, this is who I am. Who are you? Let's dream together, because I know you're thinking about a tattoo, because literally everyone is thinking about a tattoo idea.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Let's dream together. Let's get excited about it. And when I can find what they're excited about and match that excitement level and be sincere and genuine and be like, that sounds amazing. Here's what I love about it. Let's do it. And sometimes it's not a great fit for me. Sometimes it's,
Sure.
okay, you want that. I'm not ready to do a portrait of your Meemaw on you. Let me introduce you to my friend David, And
Yeah.
and I think that builds trust too, that they know that I say, I don't think I'm the perfect person for you, but let me tell you who is a good
Confidence is
option.
a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've only ever had to talk people out of tattoos and say, that's a really cool idea. I did one yesterday. It's a really cool idea to have your wife's entire name in binary code in ones and zeros on your finger. However, we can't fit a block of 20 ones and zeros in the ring space of your finger because
Sure
it's
you
going
can.
to
Come
heal into a
on.
glob. So I could just take their money and be like, hey, give me $100, give me $150. Let's do this.
Right.
Let's get it done quick. Knowing it's going to go out the door and heal like garbage and look like garbage. Or I can build trust with that client and say, that is an awesome idea. It's so creative. I love it. Here's 3 options. We can put less on the finger. We can do all of it, but put it somewhere else. Go on with them, talk about ideas. And then that builds that trust. And they're willing to continue that conversation and dream with me about pieces because I was willing to take a stand and talk them out of the thing that's not going to serve them well over time.
Do you feel that would change if we, I don't know, maybe it's just something that kind of changes over time. Maybe everybody means that way in the beginning, but then when they start traveling around and they go to major cities where full of people they've never met before and they'll never see again, they just start wheeling and dealing more, not really thinking about it. And maybe that was the way it was for earlier generations of tattooing, because it's not like we didn't have social media. The
Yeah.
world was a bit bigger, and now that everybody's connected, at least with Cryptic, we're very like global centric. Like I am anyways. Like we're not just like just Springfield. Like we want to go as big as it'll possibly go. We want to reach every corner that we possibly can. So how we represent ourselves here is how we want to represent like anywhere we go. If we go to Europe or the other side of the country or to a state over, like those interactions that you're talking about are just as valuable anywhere we go. And that's a blessing and a curse. It's a lot of extra work.
Right.
It may be easier to go into a city that we've never been to, full of people we don't know, and be like, and make, gangbusters on bad tattoos and just, and then leave and never have to hear about it or never,
Nah.
but we're just not those people.
We're not.
It's not going to be hard to find us. One day we're going to be so big that it's not going to be difficult for them to find us, to praise us or to lecture us. I'm shooting for praise.
But I think
Praise
that
us.
there's a lot of people that are willing to travel for quality work with an artist that they trust.
Right.
And
And it's an
so-
investment in you, not just your art.
Yeah,
and
I
that
think a lot of it
makes
is
a huge difference.
you just getting it out there and being like, hey, this is what I can do. This is who I am is this what you're looking for?
Mhm.
And I think there's value to that. And we do have a benefit of being in the Midwest, where our operating costs are not the highest in the country. And so for the same quality of tattoo in Missouri, it's not going to cost the same as a tattoo of that quality right off the beach in Miami, in LA, in New York City, because their operating cost to just open their doors in the morning is so much just astronomically higher than what it is here. So we have that opportunity to meet people and say, hey, you know, maybe we're a flyover state, but there's talent here and it's worth stopping by. And you can go to the Bass Pro down the street if you're really into that while you're here. You know, go say hi to the alligators. It'll be a great time. But I think that there's a lot of options there. I think there's going to be more options, like for me personally, as I gain more experience, because like David already has a strong portfolio that stretches over years and years and years. And I am still a baby artist at the end of the day. And
Me too.
I'm super excited to see where I am in 3 years and in 5 years. But, you know, it's not that I've got nothing to offer. So there's always that learning curve with learning, like, okay, what I'm doing is worthwhile and I can price it what I think is fair. I don't have to undersell myself. And
well, when we see your work and your
that sort of
progress
thing.
and the directions you're wanting to go and you're chasing whimsy, but logically, you know, probably if best that you don't see yourself the way we see you, because then you get like a big head and be a total pill to be around. And
but
at
I
least-
would love to travel, like, because I spent like 10 years working with international students. I would love to go see friends in Colombia and go see friends in South Korea and go see friends in, you know, in
We'll get there.
Japan. And I mean, Japan's kind of a little trickier, but, you know, go see friends all over the place and, you know, work for a few days while I'm there and be like, hey, this is a work trip, but also there's a rainbow lake here. Let's go hang out there. Look, there's a rainforest.
And
Look, there's some mountains.
What's
you know,
great is
it'd
that
be amazing.
your sheer
So-
talent is only a small fraction of what will get you there. And, you know, and you understand that. And you work, you're not manipulating people. You're not working people. You're just understanding your
No.
value, and your investment in people speaks in volumes.
But
and
yeah,
that's
connecting to
a huge
people
deal.
is incredibly valued. It can't be
Yeah.
undervalued. And there's artists that are extraordinary that, you know, they click off and they put their headphones in and they don't interact with you the whole time, and that's what they need to do their craft, and that's fine.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. It's not me though. And so and that's why there's an artist out there for everybody, you know. There's plenty of different
just
things
gotta
you can get.
find the right one,
Yeah.
not just settle for one.
So I'm probably wrap it up with this, but I am really impressed by how open-minded everybody's been, experimenting, trying different things, you know, stepping into different avenues that they hadn't really considered before. And I like to think that there's huge benefits from doing both. You know, there's so many similarities and so many differences between the two, but I think that we fit into both pretty well. I think
We're still building that bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's going to happen naturally, and we'll be a part of it. We're happy to be a part of it. We'll let it unfold naturally. But you know, I think between Carnival of Ink was a great time. That had a lot of fun. And you know, just
That's always a great time.
It's mind blowing. Like just how much amazing talent, and then how approachable they are. You know, it seems like there's that we bridge that gap. You know, to see like, and it's not even a competition for me. Maybe it is for others, but for me, but like it's such a welcoming place for any artist and tattoo artist. And I think there's that whole like gatekeeping vibe is starting to fade. And this year I really felt like, at least in Carnival, like it's definitely starting to take hold. It's definitely feeling like everybody's like, you know what? No, come over here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Or, you know,
Gosh,
or they'll explain what they went through, and you know, they're a lot. It's more of a community than the stigma has allowed, and
The
to see
amount
that in
of
person was insane.
Artists I met just like in the printer line.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I know.
Like I met some amazing artists in the printer line being like,
Yeah.
hey, where are you? Oh, where are you from? And what do you do? Oh my gosh. And I met a guy that's been on the road just doing conventions for more than 20 years. That's just what he does, is he goes and puts out these amazing color portraits all over the place, and just talking to him about what's your experience with that as an artist, as a father, as a husband, you know, like what's that been like for you? What are you wanting to do in the future, you know? And sometimes people do that for a while and switch it up. And for the most part, artists I've talked to have been like really open and friendly and welcoming, and to clients and to other artists being like, hey, look at this thing over here. This is cool.
and it's endearing. It's
Yeah.
very supportive, and it kind of counters that stigma of the tattoo industry. When you got Kat Spencer, somebody that I have a lot of respect for, and who's reviewing my tattoo in a competition. And he's just like, oh man, yeah, probably didn't place at all, but he's like, oh, I get it, that's cool. And he had nothing but good stuff to say, and it's just like they just genuine excitement, and you see other artists just genuinely proud of those who do win, and like verbally, like right there, like yeah, you're my boy, like they're excited for their friends and their peers, and then you see other artists who are incredibly talented, like just like they cry when they win, like it's just like that's not something that you would
That's a big
expect to see.
achievement.
It is.
It's a
But
big
that's not
achievement
what you would
because-
expect to see from anybody on the outside who thinks about what a tattoo artist is and a tattoo shop is. These people are invested. They're very emotionally, very caring. Not all of them. I mean, people are people. But like that whole weekend was very uplifting, very positive. Like, you got hardworking peers that are just genuinely happy to be there and happy for their friends and their peers and for those that they respect that brought them up, and that's awesome. That's incredible. And that's something that's shared in the more pop culture conventions that I've seen. But I don't think that competition, the energy of that competition in Carnival of Ink, I've never seen that to that degree in the other convention style.
It would be hard to match that and to have something like that in a pop culture convention because of the diversity of what's being produced and enjoyed at a pop culture convention.
And that's not anything on on those conventions. It's nothing they can control. It's
No.
not their fault, but it's just like there's a certain.
Because at a tattoo convention, like it's about the tattoos. At the end of the day, we're all here for tattoos. There might be somebody selling some cool dead bugs, but we're here for tattoos.
I bet you there's that same. Not quite the same, but I bet you there's that same enthusiasm when there's panels going on, and there's people in those rooms, and they're
costume
attending
contests.
those. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
They
That's
are in it. They're in it to win it, straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and the
they
cosplay
definitely
competition
exist.
is a big thing. The art competition, man, the art competition is just challenging because when you're talking about all these different mediums, it's really hard to apples and oranges compare.
Yeah, it's kind of
what
a
people put
behind the curtain
together.
setup,
Yeah.
anyways.
It's
Yeah.
tough.
So, but yeah, I think that enthusiasm's there. I think it's just a different setup and it's a different environment, and they're both worth trying out for sure if you haven't been to one.
So weighing pros and cons, like, or if any cons at all, pun partially intended. Which do you prefer? Do you still like entertaining both sides of the fence? Is it?
I absolutely see value to both. I think they're both great, but I do think it's a different environment. I personally will always choose the pop culture con over the tattoo con if I have to pick one, because I would rather be in a place that is a little quieter, a little more chill, a little less competitive. There's some nice, like the music of the Shire from Lord of the Rings is playing in the background, as opposed to like 12 booths in my vicinity all playing a different track of metal music at the same time, and my brain's like melting out my ear a little bit.
I'm probably half of those 12. So
it's
I know. It's fine. You can say it.
It's really exciting for a lot of people. I am such a little homebody though, and so it's a lot of excitement for little old me. Yeah, so the tattoo convention's really cool. It's valuable. I fit in more at the nerd convention. I've been a dungeon master. I've been in D&D for years. I love it. Yeah, I want to do all the nerd stuff, but
I mean,
that's
tattoo
just
artists
like,
are nerds too. I
I'm
think
like,
they're
this is my
more and more comfortable
people.
showing
Right.
it.
yeah, but both places, the art is really what I get excited about. Like the people who are writing books, that's cool, but like the art's what I get excited about at both, and so I love that that's on the table for both.
So what do you think? I mean, apples and oranges?
It is, I guess. I mean, I will always be partial to tattoo conventions.
Sure.
It's your home.
I mean, it is. I mean, I just for the smaller cons like that, it's not. I guess it's maybe if I was still like maybe early in my career, it might be a little different. But being as far in, I mean, those bigger conventions or it's a sense of. You just kind of get a feeling of knowing where you belong.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I know that that's where I belong, and that's where I.
Yeah.
It's not so much as that I fit in. I mean, I'm not big into the nerd stuff as everybody else. You know, I watch Star Wars. I get into, you know, the
Yeah.
what's the word that I'm looking for?
Like fandoms.
The like the cult. I'm into the cult movies. You know.
Oh,
sure,
yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah,
the classic.
I get
horror
I get
and-
into
yeah.
all of that good stuff. So
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. So like when I go to these pop culture events, you know, I'm buying art, you know, because there's really cool stuff there.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I you know, I
Yeah.
buy
No,
art.
you get excited and you're
but
happy
for
to be
me-
a part of it. But
right,
yeah,
but
it's
for
not.
me to physically like go and think that I need to tattoo at one of these, I
Yeah.
don't think that that's for me.
Mhm.
I think it's a great stepping stone for younger artists that
Sure.
are looking to get their feet wet
Yeah.
in
And clients.
into the tattoo, you know, into the convention type style scene.
Mhm.
Because then it's the process is the same. You still have to go through all the same stuff, but ideally, what it comes down to is that those two groups are totally different
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
as far as what you see as people coming in. You know, and I think it'll always be like that. I think introducing tattooing into the pop culture events is good.
Yeah.
Again, it's bridging that gap. It's bleeding them in. It's understanding that we too do fit at those. I mean, I'm not going to say that, you know, some of the leather work people that were there at Tremendicon wouldn't fit in at a tattoo convention somewhere as a vendor, because they easily could. I mean,
Yeah,
all those
they
things
could.
are art forms. You know, oddities. You find oddities at tattoo conventions.
Right.
So it's not like that those things don't exist. I mean, just for me personally, I mean, I'm a tattoo artist, and tattoo conventions are where I belong, and you know, and I'll cheap plug right now. September 13th through the 15th, Lake of the Ozarks. I will be tattooing at the Invitational. Make sure you come out. It's during Bike Week.
Yeah.
So
During
you can
Bike
follow
Week.
all that stuff on the Carnival of Ink network or the Carnival of Ink on Facebook, Instagram, any of those places. Make sure
Yeah.
you go there.
We might be there, but we weren't invited. That's how we know it's special.
It is.
We'll be
It's kind of
cheering
the.
him
It's kind of the cream of the crop. It's people that have won awards at
It
these
is.
other
There
conventions.
were only they
Yeah.
have limited that to 50 artists,
Yes.
and they will be some of the best artists I think in the state. And
hmm
there you go.
You won't be
So-
getting the newbies.
Yeah. The
So
best
make
of the
sure that
best.
you come out, check that out.
Yeah.
Again, September 13th through the 15th, Lake of the Ozarks Bike Week. It'll be a good time. Definitely a good time.
hmm
And with that, I think we can wrap it up. Like, we know that you're watching the podcast, so we have to say it. Hit subscribe. I mean, please, it helps us out. It's free.
Follow them all. The TikToks, the Instagrams, the
Right.
YouTubes.
Yeah.
And then Nate can keep buying new mics if you hit the subscribe.
Well,
button.
hopefully
It'll
this
be
will go
great.
by well enough. I'm pretty sure I won't have to buy mics for a little while. Mic stands maybe, because we keep bumping them,
Yeah,
so we
we
may need to
are-
come up with
yeah,
something.
mic
It's
stands
a
would be
it's a
good.
process, but yeah,
Yeah,
no,
because
I mean,
I want to be able to like a mic stand where I can put handkerchiefs off of it, so I can be like Steven Tyler.
oh yeah, I suppose
Yeah.
without all the creepy stuff. Yeah.
Right.
That's the creepy stuff.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like, subscribe, comment. What do you think? Like, are you a comic convention person? Are you a tattoo convention person? Do you have experience in both? Are you also trying to dabble a little bit in column A, column B? Like, we want to know.
Yeah.
Like, that's really interesting stuff. We know we're not the only ones, but we don't see a lot of people doing what we're trying. What do you think? If you went to a comic convention and you saw tattoo artists, would you be skeezed out? Because we heard some people were, but then they met us and we're sweethearts. They're like, no, you know what? This is actually pretty cool. Like, you got it, guy. You're right. So what do you think? Like, let us know. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and also on Spotify.
hmm
With
All of
that,
Stay metal.
yeah. Is that our sign off?
Peace.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Thanks, guys.